Hey, what's going on? I thought today we could talk about survival mode, making the right decision, or how do you know if you're making the right decision, right? And then also adapting to things. And this is more so like for parenthood. But recently we've been watching Mr. Beast games. And if you haven't already, you can go check it out. But I will be spoiling some things if you haven't, so just a heads up. But if you haven't heard, Mr. Beast is having this giant competition. It's like $5 million. It is started out with over 1,000 competitors, right? And through all these different competitions, they're going through there's a lot of psychological games, right? So sometimes it's like whoever you're just in a row with, you have to create an alliance, right? Or maybe it's 3 in a group. He says, hey, get with your friends. So you pick a friend, you do this one competition, and then now since he knows like, oh, these are your friends, now you have to decide which one of you leaves kind of a things. And so it's constantly like, as I'm watching it unfold, okay, you can recognize a few things, right? Obviously the contestants are in this survival mode, right? They're trying to get to the $5 million. There's high stakes, there's high competition at all times. And some of it's by skill, right? So it's like, can you answer this question? Can you throw this thing in here? And then some of it's completely by luck. So there was one competition where it was, they had to split into teams. I think it was 4 teams. And let's say each team was about 200 people, right? And somehow they had to vote on a leader. They're like, hey, pick a captain. And these people have just met, right? And so they had to choose this captain, and then the captains went up, and then these captains had a choice. It's like, hey, you can either, he displayed this value of money, and it went up all the way to $1 million. And he's like, hey, at any point, if you press the button, you take the money, whatever the value is. The other 200 people get screwed. So yes, you screw these people over, you get to, a lot of money. And so it was so heroic almost to unfold, right? So I'm gonna spoil it if you haven't seen. So the captains go up and the money starts going and nobody's clicking, right? And all the players on the floor are like, hey, please nobody press the button, because if you chose the wrong captain for your team, if they do give in and choose the money, everybody just goes. Like, you didn't even get a chance to play, essentially. And so everybody's up and the money is spinning, right? And it's like, final call, it's $1 million. You can press the button now, take $1 million, which is 1/5 of the whole prize anyways. Right, and then go. But everybody, it was so heroic, right? It's like everybody's like, no, I'm not gonna let my team down. I'm not gonna let my team down, right? And they stood there and nobody took the money. Everybody was safe, And it was so interesting to watch the relationships that quickly build, right? Because everybody felt like they were in this survival mode, which I think is so similar to when you're first starting your parenthood journey, especially in those first few years. Everything is so forever changing that it constantly feels like survival mode, right? And we're low on energy, we're low on time. It's so hard to figure out how to balance our time management between taking care of others, taking care of ourselves, keeping our relationships, right? Whether it's friends, family, significant other. And so many decisions, you're in survival mode. And so it's interesting to watch all of this form due to the surroundings, right? So they're in this game, but these are the things that are happening. And so it was so interesting to watch, because I was like, you're gonna picture yourself in the moment. It's like, okay, well, if I was on Mr. Beast games and let's say I was chosen as the captain, if I'm standing up there, and in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, I would totally stand up there. I would never let a team down. Totally would be with everybody who was standing up there. But then later, as it passed, and then later you see, again, spoiler alert, one of the captains that did say no all the way to $1 million did get sent home. And he was like, I liked myself before, I like myself now. And it's so gracious, where you're like, wow, you were really fine with this and all of it. But I started thinking, how is it that so quickly people were able to bond this unbreakable relationship with these strangers to bail on $1 million? Because I'm saying I would do that. That seems like the right thing to do. But then to separate myself from it, I'm like, wait, no, actually the right thing to do would probably be hey, I'm in this competition. These are all competitors. This is my chance to win $1 million, which, it's like, hey, everybody else would get to send home. I'm surprised to see, I was impressed to see, because people stood up, but I'm surprised to see the different relationships that start to form, where you start to make an alliance, right? Whether you're going to work as a team, whether you're going to work as a group, the mind games that are going on. But I kept thinking back about okay, Now the Mr. Beast games are like parenting, but like just certain things you can draw from it, because I just found it so fascinating. Because I anytime you're in a group setting, right, where things are a little bit out of your control, we start to try to bond and find teams, right? I think it happens with motherhood, where at first you kind of feel like it's a separation from society in a way, right? Because time kind of keeps going and you're a little away. But then if you find your group of moms or somebody you can talk to or anything, you know, it's like you feel bond, right? People in the military, right? If they're away on a mission, they have a bond. You go through something together. And so it's interesting to watch, because technically in a big scheme, these are all competitors. This is all a competition. But there's these parts where you have to, this is what I found kind of interesting. So constantly, right? So Jimmy's changing the rules, right? So it's like, now it's this, now it's that. Oh, did you find this? Now it actually means this. So it's constantly changing. And I thought, okay, that's so similar to parenthood, where things are constantly moving and you just have to like quickly adapt. For things that I was kind of stubborn in change, you know, where certain things I was very much type A, I'm trying to be very more type B. But when things go a little out of control, it's like, whoa, that's so different. It's so unexpected. I wasn't expecting that. But with parenting, you almost have to adjust, like, oh, you didn't bring this, or you didn't bring this, or you didn't, you know, oh, now we didn't, what does this look like? What does this look like? And it's constantly changing. And being able to adapt to that. And I think that's super interesting. And then the building of relationships, I think could, or lack thereof, right, could be a whole separate chapter of the village that people talk about, right? It's like, oh, it takes the village to raise a kid. And it takes a lot of time and effort to raise a kid, because they deserve that time. And it's hard right now because there's so many things going on, and everybody, you know, it's just hard, it's expensive. People are working day in, day out. I'm waking up early, you know, I gotta work, this is my family, I love what I do. And so I was thinking, so we do important things for our kids. This is let me go back a little bit, I think I skipped. So then also considering, we talk about this village, right, and the lack thereof, because people have moved, circumstances have changed through generational things. You know, there's a lot of separation, a lot of people healing, a lot of people finding things. But for me personally, I've said this before, but I didn't have the village, and so I try to be people's village. It comes from that kind of a thing. And but if you have a village, you know, this was surprising to me, because so I've mentioned this before, but within my friend group that I did kind of know, I was one of the first people to kind of start my parenthood journey. And so I didn't necessarily have an example of anything, and I think it made it really tough for me not to be able to confide in anyone, or share moments with, or just, you know, vent or talk or anything. And so for a while I thought, gosh, it's so difficult for everybody, you know. And then some of my friends started becoming parents, and I'd reach out like, hey, how are you? How's this? And I was so relieved and surprised though to hear that they're like, no, I'm doing so well. We have, you know, we have the mom and the dad here, and then the sister and the so, and then the kids go in here and play, and then they have this community around them, where of course parenting is hard, but there's certain ease to it and simplicity as well. And I find that so admiring. I saw something else where it's like, instead of the baby shower, people are doing nesting parties. And first time I saw this was like a TikTok or Instagram or something, and I just cried. I was like, oh my gosh, people came over to like help you build a crib and put the diapers away. And just like, for me, I was like, wow, in the way that, because you know, one of my love languages, I guess, is service. And so I love to do things for people, and I love it when, you know, when I see that care and consideration through action or service or help. And so, especially with things that are important, right? To set up a baby space, to feel safe, to feel like you're home, to feel like you're ready to bring a baby in at home. I think nesting parties is so sweet, and something that I didn't have, or, you know, you just sometimes watch these things happen for other people, and you're like, wow, and I'm so happy you have the support. In all honesty, like, I'm so jealous it didn't happen for me, but gosh, that's so beautiful to see that that's out there and people are getting that support. All that to say, the difference between having that support and having that comfortability and not having the support and not knowing what's your next move, what's going to happen. And so in the games, it's like some people are building friends, some people are building fake friends to try to get ahead. Like, it's so psychological. It's astonishing to see like a little gaslighting goes here, right? A little like, trickiness, right? It's so, I'm always fascinated by people's behavior, especially when you put them in a group setting for a common goal, right? So it's like, how are we all gonna work together against one another to really see what's going on? And then another thing they did was, so a lot of people are dropping, right? These competitions, like it went from 1,000 to like 500 really quick, and then like, I think there's only 100 people left at this point, but they're competing against for something, and then another bribe happens. Like, hey, you can either continue to compete or you can take this $450,000 home. And somebody says, yes, I'm gonna take it. I'm like, oh my gosh, do it. Like, that's guaranteed money. Everything else so far has been no guaranteed, except for that 1 million that nobody took. But now because things are slimmer, right? It's like slimmer chances perhaps of winning. Granted, they're further in the competition. It's more secure to take that money, because you start thinking about it, like for those who are with family, going with zero, $450,000, like that's still huge. And I was thinking in the retrospect of like, whatever situation we're in, it just feels so, sometimes overwhelming, but it feels like, okay, this is it, right? So it's like within the Beast Games, or like, this is the world we're in, and I have to get to this 5 million, which they set the competition, right? They should go for that goal. But it's also adapting and changing, right? Like we do in parenthood, and realizing, hey, this is where I'm at. If I take this 450, I can still provide for my family and do what I needed to do. But the way it's set in the games is they have to make these decisions so quickly and not fold under pressure. And I find that fascinating in a way where I think some days in parenting is like super slow, but then often you just have to make really quick decisions and have to stand by them, right? And then also those decisions that take a long time to make. So it's like, hey, are we gonna homeschool or public school or private school? Are we gonna do extracurricular activities, right? Specific classes, or I don't know, like ballet, or outside of school or inside of school? Are we gonna do screen time or no screen time? You know, are we gonna do, so many decisions are kind of made daily, and that's a lot of the mental load, right, that people often talk about. It's like, hey, it's not going to the grocery store and buying the food, it's, did I use all that onion, or do I still have a half an onion? I don't want to get more onion because I don't want that onion to go bad, but if I already did use it, I won't have any onion. And I needed to get a little bit more of salt. I think that was out. I have half of the chicken breast left in the fridge. I hope it didn't go, right? So it's like risk aversion on meal prepping. Like it's not so, for me it is, I go through those conversations, but I think it is easier for some people. But it's the mental load of answering all these questions, and that's just about a meal, right? So it's like the appointments, the scheduling, the getting to places, the payments, the phone calls, all of it is so time consuming, because we go from caring about one person to now caring about our kids and making sure we put them ahead, do things for them. And so it's just interesting. But I keep thinking like, okay, I know we're not in the games, but it's so interesting to learn when people are able to make those decisions. And then again, what the conversation is, how do you know if it's the right decision? Because sometimes you look back on something, you're like, maybe if I did it this way, would that have turned out differently? Or what does that look like, right? And just kind of seeing, because of course we always want what's best for our kids, and in the end for like our family and us and stuff, but there's so many things that we have to take into consideration all the time, and that's what kind of makes it difficult. But I love because I always think of, for our kids, they need to learn through practice and play. So I think, okay, how can I get better at making more executive decisions? Because I do want to be better at it. Even now with things like dinner or lunch, I want to be like, hey, more precise. If this is what I want, yes, let's go for it, because me saying, oh, I don't know, or this and this, or like, doesn't help anybody. It really just doesn't move things along for anything. Let me see some more. So with Mr. Beast Games and parenting, the teamwork and alliances, right? So it's like either you have a group, because for one of them, it's like some people just got voted off if nobody made friends. So it's like, if you don't have your village, people who are going to just like help you out on a certain thing, you're out. It becomes so much more harder. Trust in relationships, I think this one's really difficult, because in the games, right, they're kind of in isolated situations with really, right, like risen emotions and everything, but I think that happens a lot with parenthood and relationships in general. where you have to figure out, like with kids, if you're parenting or co-parenting, or if you're, for divorced parents, when you have to figure out, okay, like, am I bringing this person into, do the kids get to meet this person? Making those decisions and figuring out who to trust. And again, depending on your history, right? Because if you've had the unfortunate, series of events where it's like people who let you down a lot, it becomes really hard to trust people because your experience with it is like essentially a failure after failure after failure. I saw this one post one time where it's like, God, why do you keep sending me the same, it was like for a dating thing, like same type of person. And the God was like, because you won't learn. And I was like, oh, whoa, there are so many times where we go through, it's like, man, this keeps happening to me. And it's like, oh, because I keep doing the same things. I need to do something different for me to have a different result. Sometimes it's so hard to see in retrospect when we're doing something and it seems right? It seems like the right thing. Making decisions under pressure, something I saw in the game, but I thought, hey, more so I think I was thinking about it because of the emergencies that are going on again in California, and it's just, and in other places, right? Like it's just, there's places where things are really difficult and people are forced to make very executive decisions in a very short amount of time, and the anxiety of it, like, dealing with those things is just it's just hard. I thought this was kind of interesting because when you watch players, you got to watch them in a way, because I think I mentioned this earlier, right? Like everybody is a competitor within that world, right? Yet there are times where you have to have a lot of empathy because you're trying to build, again, alliance, relationships to try to either feel safe, for different reasons. And I thought that was interesting because at some point they had to, finding that balance, I guess, of empathy and competition. Not necessarily competition in parenting, but more so like, I think in parenting, one of the things sometimes I struggle with is like, when my kids were like super babies, even with the Ezzy now, he's almost 1, but like, I want to protect him. I don't want you to fall. I don't want you to fall at all. And so that's the empathy, right? But I need to be, responsible in a way where my kids do need to fall, hopefully safely, because they need to learn how to catch themselves. If I never let them fall, you wouldn't even know how to catch yourself, you know what I mean? Only after you fall do you know, hey, I really need to put my hands down. I need to, and so it's this like balance of, okay, when do I really help them through and when do I need to pull back and say, hey, honestly, because I love you, you need to learn this thing for yourself, going potty, wiping, washing, putting your plate away, tying your shoes, all of those things. We want to have the empathy far enough, and that's another conversation too, how do you find that balance of, hey, this is something I personally struggle with, is because I want to do everything for my kids, and I'm on their beck and call. They say, there's Velcro kids, I'm like the Velcro mom. I'm like, do you need me? I'm so here, I want to help as much as I can, I want, And so I struggle pulling away, and so I know I need to be better at, like, hey, I know you can do this, you can figure this out. But finding that balance, right? It's like, hey, when do you really know? And which decision is the right decision, Do you do it earlier? Do you do it later? I find it so interesting because different, just talking about it and seeing it. Adapting as to the unexpected, right? So like whatever's going on in the game, I think being able to adapt to unexpected in front of our kids is so powerful and teachable and important, right? I remember one time we were like, hey, let's go to the splash pad. We all packed up, we're ready to go. We get there, a pipe blew out. And we're like, hey, we kind of play this game called Good News. It's like, hey, this didn't happen. Good news is there's a Chick-fil-A around the corner, we can go grab, like, hey, this didn't happen. Good news is we can do this. Which my daughter's really good at this game because sometimes when something doesn't go, she just says, Mommy, good news is, and I'm like, okay, you're right. Because there's always good news, but learning how to adapt under pressure in quick situations, and then how to relate it to our kids where they learn, hey, some things are just out of our control, and if it was in our control, how do we fix this? How do we go around it? We thought we were going to do this. Now the playground's closed. Now the weather's different. Now this changed. So many things change constantly, and I think that's one of the best gifts we can give our kids is to learn. Hey, have a goal in mind. Good to have a plan. Give yourself grace and room to, hey, adapt and change if need to, right? You are enough with or without your plans. If your plans fail, you're still enough. Let's go get ice cream because it's fun and yum. But I found that really interesting. Again, we're not in the games, but learning about different behavior within just a group scenario, because I think it's also reasonable to see, I think, how kids learn with because with those games, they put a whole bunch of peers in a group with the same set goal and they're interacting, they're living with it, which is similar to like college setting, a school setting, a daycare setting, right? Where when we're around people, we tend to learn from their action. And so with kids, if they're at a daycare and they see something, they will very likely copy it and do it. And so when something like that happens, right, it's like, how do you adapt and change to that? Let me find my notes because I thought this was very fun. There's something else I saw. Oh, there was one point, again, in the competition, and it was only 3 players for this one part, and you essentially had to make a friend with one other person, because one person would win, and that one person would have the chance to bring somebody along. And so it's out of the 3 people, and so they're all chit-chatting. And then there was a moment where they just kept saying, I know you'll do the right thing, like to the person who was going to win, and they were going to, so they said, I know you'll do the right thing. And then the next person said, I know you'll do the right thing. And then this person, I know you'll do the right thing. And they just kept saying it, and they're like, what would be the right thing? And of course it made sense in their heart, for previous things, but again, in the bigger picture, to step out, everybody's a competitor, right? So it should be against everybody, but we need it in our humanity, right? To like make friends, to create alliances, to put ourselves out there. And this is a little bit different, but I also like to watch Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen, where all the chefs compete. I find it fascinating how chefs cook, how they prepare their food, how they put it on a plate. I think so much goes into it. And I was also thinking in the aspect of decision making, right? Because this is another competition, but there they have to decide, okay, what kind of ingredients am I going to incorporate in this? What kind of flavors am I going to try to pull out? Do I want something really complimentary? Is it going to be really buttery? Do I want the citrus to kind of cut through it? Do I want it a little bit heavier? Do I want a bit lighter feeling, right? And then different things are thrown in at you. So it's like, okay, you have to have the background and the knowledge and the experience of how do you work with all these different things. And then the wisdom, I guess, of how to put it all together. And so I was thinking more about how certain chefs, then they're like, hey, there's this one guy I'm kind of rooting for. I think he would do a really good job. And he always does a great job of putting his dishes together. And, at one point he's like, even Rams was like, hey, this is you on a plate. And I kept thinking about that phrasing. It's like, that's him on a plate. Him as a chef, right? It really represented everything that he can do, the finesse he can add to something, the technicality takes of the cut, the prepare, the grill, there's so much to it. And I started thinking of it in like motherhood of, I want my life to be me on a plate, right? I want to do the things that I want to be doing, that I really want to enjoy and really want to do, and not spend time in waiting. That's something about me that I'm working on, is like, I can spend a long time waiting, and I've spent waiting for the wrong things. I've spent time waiting for the wrong people, waiting for wrong things. And so I just wanted, because, I spent a lot like, oh, well, when this happened, maybe I'll do it. When this happened, and you when, and then it doesn't happen. And so now I'm like, hey, trying to do, because it's like, I think, hey, I got to do all this mom stuff, and I put myself on the back burner where I'm now like, no, I need to do things that I really like doing too, because the days are going. This is my life, and it's important, and I want to do things that I like doing. I want to set goals. I want to learn something new. I want it to be me on a plate, where it's like, hey, I'm starting to feel that way with like the episodes for Paisley's Corner, where I'm like, hey, I'm still finding the show, right? I think it's gone to such a great place, but I'm really passionate about making it. I want it to be really like, hey, not overstimulating, not short, it's long extended scenes. If you watch the show, it's very long and extended. I want to feel like, hey, your kid just came over for a play date. What can I teach him in this 30 minutes, in this 40 minutes? Like, hey, we're just playing with toys, but maybe it's about this and maybe it's about that. And doing it through the activities, or through maybe a song or a rhyme or a silly sound, or I'm trying to find that. And I think, it is everything. It'll take adjustment and everything, but I'm just starting to get really more comfortable. I think it shows up. It's like, oh, okay, that's Silly Miss Lula, right? It's like Silly Miss Lula is doing her silly thing. And so I'm excited to get more and more and more into that. I guess maybe in a way, you know how like a sculptor takes like a big giant thing of clay and they have to sculpt it. At first it's really big chunks. So you're like, no, try this, doesn't work, try this, doesn't work, try this, doesn't work. And then you start going with really little tools, right? It's like taking these little details out, and inside is this masterpiece, right? And so sometimes I feel like I'm working on that and I want to do a good job. Like, it's important to me and it really matters, and I really love doing it. Earlier today I filmed the next episode, and we're going to learn about frogs and amphibians, just the terms and stuff, and setting goals. And then we'll have a little printout so you can learn how to write frog, talk about the letter blend FR in frog, for friends, for french fries, and just starting to add more things. I think if I can keep adding a word here, a word there, a word here, a word there, I think by the end of the year we'll have a lot of readers learning how to read, learning how to write. Because even just watching somebody, right, go through and following the penmanship, oh, you start up in the right corner, you went down, and you went this way, and you went that way, right? Things just kind of make sense. In the Ramsey thing, I was thinking, it's so cool to watch Gordon Ramsay break down a recipe, right? Or any recipe. And because he's so good at it, he's such an expert, it seems so effortless, which I often think we seem like such experts to our kids, so they think what we're doing is effortless, yet we're often putting in a lot of effort and work. But if you watch Ramsay, he does it so effortlessly, and throughout the whole thing, he really explains it really well, to a point where if you watch it, he's like taking apart a crab and tells you how to cook it. After you watch it, you're like, no, I know how to do it. It probably takes a lot of practice, but he does such a good job at explaining it. You're like, hey, I feel like I can do that. And something I admire about him, he's often says like, hey, to get a perfect egg, he's done like 1,000 scrambled eggs, you know? And so it's like, for a chef at his quality of food, you know, like, he still works on his skill every single day. And so do musicians, so does everybody. And so we have that opportunity every single day. Hey, what's my craft? What am I working on? What's, you know, and it could be personal. Hey, am I going to be more patient today? Am I not, you know, maybe I'm going to try this. Maybe I'm going to try this, you know, learning things from yourself and doing things that'll help you enjoy your day, right? Like, you should be, for your kids, it's their childhood, but this is your parenthood. It's important. And so what I love is that he explains things well, even if they're hard, right? But watching him do it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence that you could do it too. And I kind of, in a way, want to do that for kids, where it's like, hey, especially because often they want to watch a video, right? And if they watch you writing something over and over again, they'll learn it, they'll pick it up, and they can start to learn and explore, and hopefully they can learn in that way. I think it'd be absolutely fabulous if we can have, you know, little readers, and because I do strongly believe, right, it's like if they can read, they can learn about anything, and that's so cool. So that episode's working on, we got snow outside, so I'm gonna go play and do some snow activities, but let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about, how do you feel about making right decisions? What do you, because it's always like, you know, you can't regret too many things, right? Things happen for a reason. Of course, it's so important to like weigh out your options, right? In the now, in the future, how will they affect it here and there? And also for anybody who's like short-tempered, if you get frustrated with your kids, I think one of the most helpful things to consider is like, will this happen in 5 years? Because if no, there's no reason to really get angry about it, right? It's like, whether it's spill, small thing, whatever it is. I feel like objects aren't worth kids' feelings. You know, if things break, it was obviously most likely an accident. It's these things we can forgive, and, you know, grant our kids a safe place at home, knowing like, hey, whatever happens, you can always come back, no matter what. I'll always listen. You know, but I think there's one like quote that went around, was super popular, where just one of the ways that I constantly think of is like, hey, when you're 85, if you're having a bad day, right, it's like tough day, you feel like you're going through the glooms, think of you, hey, if you were 85 and you were just given this day and you got to travel back in time and spend this time with your kids, how would you do it, right? You would enjoy every second. You just want to soak up those little giggles and the handprints and the footsteps and the mom, and the, you know, all of it. And so enjoy it through that perspective. Because again, all of this time is just so fleeing and fast. All right, I'm gonna go make some snowballs. We found a carrot, so I thought, hey, maybe we'll make a snowball. But I hope you have a good day. I'd love to hear in the comments about that survival mode, and how did you feel you got through it? Because I feel a lot of times I feel like I'm in survival mode due to my like chaotic upbringing and I think through motherhood anxiety, postpartum anxiety. So I'm just starting to kind of let that go and shed it. But I'd love to hear, see what's going on. So, all right, I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.